Good morning and welcome to day 3 of our conference. We're pleased to have you in this session, which is increasing access and success for underrepresented students in STEM and the health sciences. I'm very excited to have colleagues from Rush University Medical Center joining us today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping reminders. This session is being recorded and will be made available on the conference website either later today or in the next couple of days. Also, copies of the presentation, the PowerPoint slides, will also be made available on the conference website. So with that, I will go ahead and do a quick introduction of our presenters and turn the show over to them. Our colleagues from Rush University Medical Center include Angela Freeman, Natalia Gallegos, Rukiya Curvey Johnson, and Jaylene Perez. So with that, Angela, I think you're going to be the driver of the slide deck, so feel free to share your screen.
All right, wonderful, Sam. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Our presentation today is called Increasing Access and Success for Underrepresented Students in STEM and the Health Sciences. And so we already had our introduction, so I'll just continue us forward in our program. So to start us off today, we want to sort of set the stage around some of the work that we do. And so when we think about the work of Rush and the Rush Education and Career Hub, our imperative for action is really clear. Okay, so using life expectancy at birth, we can see the connections between neighborhood conditions and the vastly different health outcomes experienced by folks living just a few miles apart. So a baby born in the Chicago Loop area can be expected to live to 82. You travel a few miles west and that life expectancy drops to 72. So disparities across the areas of education, employment, and economic opportunity remain the key drivers behind these differences. In response to these tremendous inequities, Rush has really committed to improving health by not only addressing healthcare inequities, but by also simultaneously addressing the social factors that impact these communities. Educational attainment is one of the most important drivers to increase health, improve life expectancy, and reduce hardship. And the Rush Education and Career Hub model really guides Chicago area students to explore and pursue careers in STEM and the health sciences. And with that, I will turn it over to Rukiya Curvey Johnson.
All right, good morning, everyone. So Angela outlined some of the challenges that we see looking at life expectancy. We also, of course, see large gaps in educational attainment and aspirations. We see a lack of diversity among active physicians. We actually have quite a few medically underserved areas that are near the medical district, and that's based on income levels and the fact that we may not have enough physicians who will take Medicaid. We also see that there is a lack of diversity in high-skilled STEM professionals, and of course, knowing that these disparities in education and employment affect earning potential as well as health and economic outcomes. Next slide. And so part of what we are charged with, or what we thought about, is how do we create that next generation of community problem solvers, and really thinking about who is the future of our healthcare workforce, who are the future leaders of community policy and community health efforts, and how do we get a chance to help create and develop that next generation of leaders. Next slide. And so through that, we came up with the Rush Education and Career Hub. It is actually part of a long legacy that Rush has had around providing science and math enrichment, but we wanted to take that a step further and really think about how are we strategic in terms of building that long pipeline, if you will, into careers. And so we provide innovative hands-on STEM learning for underrepresented students in a cradle to career pipeline that will lead to the diversity of the healthcare and STEM professions. Every day, we educate and empower Black and Latinx and low socioeconomic status students to make sure that they are prepared to lead in the future of work. And we are putting them on a path to skilled, high quality employment, and greater economic well-being. Next slide. And so for us, we look at where we're situated, and this is something you can do for wherever you are. Rush is situated in the Chicago's West Side, is in the Illinois Medical District. There are, several leading hospitals and healthcare systems, educational institutions, as well as a tech hub, all in the same sort of, 5 to 7 mile radius. And there really isn't any reason why a young person or a resident should not be able to access the skilled and family sustaining wages that are available based on the careers and the jobs that come with the education, health, and tech fields. Next slide. And so for us, of course, our focus is on reaching those West Side residents. To develop our approach, we really looked at the research and considered the communities that we serve. For us right now, our population is primarily Black, 80% Black and Latinx in terms of our participants. It is primarily female, 70% low income, and 65% are first generation college students. Next slide. And so our approach is one that is focused around building occupational identity in the STEM and healthcare fields. And the way we do that is by providing access to high quality STEM learning experiences from pre-K through college. We provide paid work-based learning experiences. We pair students with a professional. We also provide personal development to them also. We have articulated career pathways that are aligned to labor market demand. We want to make sure that we're not having students just do stagnant, things, that we're paying attention to where the demand, where the jobs are, as well as we want to make sure that they're able to earn industry recognized credentials that are relevant and timely for today and tomorrow. And then we also provide wraparound supports and mentoring to facilitate student engagement as well as family participation. Next slide. And so just to give you a deeper look at this cradle to career pipeline, for us, starting in those early grades is incredibly important. Everyone knows with the STEM field, you really, really have to start early. By third or fourth grade, you have students that have sort of dropped out, or if their interest and awareness isn't peaked at that point, you can end up losing them. In a lot of cases, you do end up losing them. And so we know it's important to start early, sparking that interest around, and curiosity and sort of basic skills of investigation, and helping young people to think about what they might want to be and how to explore those career options. So we have programming targeted towards students, towards teachers, in terms of developing their STEM-focused instructional habits, as well as programming targeted towards parents. And then we have programming in middle school that really helps students, again, dig deeper with that exploration piece, and not only exploring careers, but just learning about themselves and their own interests, and thinking about, do I like working with my hands? Do I like to investigate? Do I like to build? Whatever it may be, we want them to have a better understanding of who they are and to build on those strengths. We also want them to start thinking about their high school journey and that next step and the next step. And middle school, because Chicago is, a district of choice, students can travel to various, all over the city for their high schools. There are also, of course, CTE focused schools, or, your schools with the different interests. We know in middle school, they have to start thinking about that. And so we also want them to explore, well, what's the educational path, or what school should I be going to at this point? And then high school, again, is a place for deeper exposure and exploration. We're focusing then on employability and life skills in that space. We're also focusing on preparing for college and that post-secondary. The thing about healthcare and, of course, STEM, there are a lot of jobs that you can get without a 4-year college degree, but there is some post-secondary certification. There is some next step of education that you have to take beyond the high school diploma. And so we focus on thinking about that path and giving students a chance to explore in different careers and even build awareness, right, of the careers that might be out there. And again, the educational journey to take. And then we have our college level programming, again, to give students more chances to explore, to deepen their understanding of specific career areas. We're also focused on building that social capital, that networking with each other, with other professionals, and of course, thinking about, again, that next step for them beyond college, because that is just one step on the journey. Next slide. And so our programming provides for multiple entry points for career exploration and immersion. So we have a pre-internship program, and then internship, and then apprenticeship space. And then we have another level for college. And this way we have students who are able to return to us. They can come to us for multiple years for programming. We know that for a lot of Black and Latinx students, or really, I think for students in general, having that opportunity to revisit and have multiple touch points is helpful for them sort of solidifying, again, their identity in the space. So students can come back to us multiple times, and or we may get introduced to somebody later on in the process. So maybe we didn't catch you in high school, but you're able to find your way to us at the college level. And so our programming allows for that. Next slide. The career pathways that we're focused on, again, we looked at labor market demand, but also we just want to make sure that there is sort of a variety and understanding of what is available in the healthcare system space. So yes, we have medicine, of course, and nursing and allied health, but we also have IT, and we also have health administration and innovation, which are focused for those areas of students who are interested in business or law or entrepreneurship. The one thing that really excites me, or what I like about the healthcare space, is in the healthcare system, there are all kinds of jobs. There are all kinds of things that you can do. Almost any interest somebody has, there can be an intersection with the healthcare space. So you have students into music, they can be a music therapist. You have students who are interested in sports, they can be an athletic trainer or a sports psychologist. There are a lot of ways to intersect, and so we hope by providing these variety of career pathways for students to explore, they're able to see what's possible. Next slide. And so all of this, when you think about, excuse me, the efforts that we put into this to reach our goals, combining academic skills and enrichment and job-specific skills and work experiences and those soft or success skills underscored by equity, is all in a push to make sure that ultimately, when we look across the board at all the students that we engage, we want to see at least 65% of them move into careers in STEM and healthcare. Backwards mapping from there in terms of credentials, we want at least 70% of our participants to earn an industry recognized credential that will put them on a path to a high wage or high demand job. Next slide. And we do all of this in collaboration with our variety of partners. This isn't work that, of course, you can do alone. We touch over 3,000 students and teachers and families through our programming. Of course, we work with Chicago Public Schools, a few other charter schools, but organizations like Chicago Scholars and Braven and Instituto is another group. And of course, city colleges and even UIC. We have to partner in order to be able to provide the level of programming, and also just a breadth. In some cases, we'll work with students and sort of be the next handoff from a program that they may be in already. So if you're in Chicago Scholars and you're in that for 2 years, then what's your next step after that? You might then, join our program, and we recruit from each other in that way. Next slide. And so we'll talk about a couple of our spotlight programs to sort of dig a little bit deeper into what the programming looks like for students. Oh, show it.
One moment so I can reshare with the sound.
These types of certifications are important for the students for a few reasons. Number one, it gives them exposure, all right? And I feel that that's extremely important. Number two, they get the what we call work-based learning and hands-on interactions. Okay, so they're not just learning the material, but they're actually experiencing it, learning how to deal with a patient, with patient care management. Finally, they're also learning the economic values for these programs. And if they decide to go into nursing, if they decide to be either a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, or even a physician, and I believe that the sky's the limit for these kids.
I learned a lot about mostly medical terminology that's going to be helpful as I further my career in STEM and medicine. And I also learned a lot on how to deal with deal with different people in the field and how to collaborate with others.
All right, thank you. So you just got a chance to see sort of what our summer looks like and sort of the type of programming that we do. Just as an update, last summer we had 180 students in our programming. We actually have students complete a health equity assessment. Basically, that is our way of understanding if there are needs that our students may have, whether it's around food, transportation, housing, different things, so that we can connect them with resources as much as we can, and or provide certain things directly to them, like technology, to ensure that they're able to participate in the programming. Of course, we've still been in this sort of virtual environment in the healthcare space that's been pretty challenging, but we pair that with some in-person labs to be able to provide some in-person programming for students. And we're just looking forward to the day when we can just fully, everybody can fully be back on campus. We also had to shift some of our curriculum and make sure that it was something that made sense in the virtual space. And so some things are a bit more engaging than others. And that was one of the the definite shifts that we had to work with our instructional staff, and also even for students. And we also provide training to our staff. So we hire in like practicing health professionals, as well as folks who teach at the college level to provide the programming, to provide the instruction. But we also provide them with training to ensure, one, that they can work with high school students, and also more engaging style. So cooperative learning is the learning approach that we like to use in our programming that ensures more student engagement and student voice. And then, of course, there's exposure to the field through career panels. That's what we, in this virtual space, we've done a lot more career pathway panels, and provided other resources in terms of post-secondary planning for college, and financial aid workshops for students. Next slide. And so you had a chance to see the MedSTEM Pathways program in effect. It is a 6-week internship. It is paid. And again, you saw sort of that focus and offerings around community service, mentoring, the industry recognized credentials, and professionalism, and such. Next slide. And then at our college level, we also, that experience is primarily, it's work-based. It's an 8-week internship. It also includes weekly seminars with various faculty folks. They have a book club and other career panels as well, and also community service. Again, you have students who are able to grow with us, I think, which is incredibly important. And then they also have a chance just to be in different departments. We have students who come in, oh, I want to be a pediatrician. Oh, I want to be a neurosurgeon because I've grown up on Grey's Anatomy. And then they may find out, well, no, I really enjoy my time in labor and delivery, or I really, enjoy learning about, or enjoy my time doing radiology tech or so. And so they get a chance to explore different areas. And so this allows for that. And I am going to turn it over to Natalia to talk about some of our outcomes.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I want to kind of share a few key programmatic outcomes with you all. And this is just a snapshot of the past year and a half or so. And so one of the things I want to make sure to highlight is the number of students that we've reached. And I want to say students, community members, teachers, and that's 4,000 students. I know there's a correction from the previous slide, but we've been able to reach over 4,000 students in a matter of different ways, like Rukiya mentioned, through programs, STEM and wellness kits, our wraparound support efforts, as well as our partnered relationships with our community schools. The other thing I want to highlight is the number of students we've been able to reach. So over 180 students through our high school and college programming have earned a paid work-based learning internship. So we want to make sure we highlight that, as well as the number of students that are actually persisting in college and studying STEM and healthcare careers as well in college. And then one last thing to highlight too is those industry recognized credentials. So our goal is to reach 75, but this past year and a half, we've reached 85 students. So we're really excited to be able to share that. Next slide. One other thing that's really important to us too is making sure that our students are well aware of their continuing that interest into their pathway. So we know that students come into our programming interested in healthcare, maybe not knowing exactly what path they want to go into, but making sure that we're strengthening that commitment to those healthcare careers. So 82% of our students who've participated in programming said that the program has made them more committed to a healthcare career, and 88% of them are also have a clearer and better idea of what their next steps are to take. So we're making sure that we're providing that clarity as well as that exposure to those broader healthcare options that I know Rukiya has spoke about in the past couple of slides. Next slide. So one of the things we also wanted to share is, of course, we're sharing out our great impacts and the work that we do, but we want to be able to share and hear from our students themselves. So I want to introduce Jaylene Perez. who is an alumni of the Rush Education and Career Hub, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience through our programming. So welcome, Jaylene.
Thank you, Natalia. Hello, everyone. My name is Janine Perez, and I am a first-generation college graduate. I graduated with my bachelor's in biology this past December, and currently right now, I am part of the College Career Pathways internship and also helping support a program that REACH has established last year regarding medical school. So I first want to start off by saying that REACH, as I also mentioned in my blurb, has changed my entire life because they opened the doors to allow myself and other students growing up in the West Side, growing up near the Northwest Side, to have an opportunity in healthcare, right? To have a first-time exposure to healthcare as a title as an intern. And also they allowed us to have a social support, which can be really hard. Growing up, for example, for me, like in the neighborhood I grew up in, growing up with none of my parents going to college or knowing the language of English, right? So I definitely am extremely grateful for every single support I did get from high school that I started to now. So I started as a junior in high school as a Medicine Pathways intern. So I was part of their high school program. And then I applied to the College Career Pathways and also participated in that internship. And at only orientation, like at the very beginning, start of orientation, I did feel a sense of belonging at REACH. And it was mainly, in my opinion, because it was led by one of the most powerful women I ever known or had the interaction with. These were women of color, women that did get it, right? So REACH does get it. They do understand that we come from very disadvantaged backgrounds, low socioeconomic status, and not the strongest capital. So when you do have that support, it almost feels like, yeah, the sky is the limit. It almost feels like it's possible as long as the support continues on. And I want to mention that my first exposure, as I mentioned, it was in the oncology unit, and then it was recovery, then labor and delivery, and then your ICU. So it's a lot of first times, right? My first time I got my KG certification and course, the first time I got a solid support system that did create me from high school, college, and beyond. So it's like the first time of everything, and that itself shows that for a lot of students that look like me, that have a similar background, they are being the tool that are allowing us to continue on and keep going. Because we may have the support, at home and through education and school. However, when you have something as powerful as this, it really does drive you to keep going further. I feel like I do feel like they're creating vehicles that will change those policies and that are creating barriers for people of color, people with low socioeconomic status, and those who do not have the strongest social capital. So when I say the creating vehicles, I mean that they are exposing us to what was very first presented in this PowerPoint, which is health disparities, which is life expectancy. So when we are understanding and learning all of those, all that information, we are able to grasp that and take that with us everywhere we go and continue to fight, continue to break those barriers. And I do want to mention one last thing with REACH or what currently we're doing. So currently REACH established a program, as mentioned, that will support underrepresented students that wish to attend medical school. And I'm co-supporting along with a third-year international medical student. And I honestly feel like REACH itself has, like, just by me saying that, it's the system that I want to be in, and many of our students want to be in, a system that does allow us to grow since we were in high school, since we were in pre-K, right? So it's a system that I wouldn't treat for the end of the world, and I wish to be part of REACH until I'm a doctor and more, right? And continue to support him. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jaylene. And I'll pass it back to Rukiya.
All right. So thank you. I do want to say just a little bit on that too. If you didn't totally catch that, like, Jaylene is already giving back. Like, as a college graduate, she is co-leading this program called Are You Ready? med school boot camp. And so she, and actually it's her sister, are leading this effort to get, 25 plus students into medical school, and preparing them and providing them with that guidance and initial support and experiences that will help make them successful candidates. That's something that Jaylene, it's like learning. We want to make sure they have the tools and sort of confidence themselves to say, I can be, again, that change agent and that community problem solver. And they have taken the reins and the leads, and I'm so incredibly proud, of the work that they've done. Okay, enough of that. All right, so part of the key takeaways I think that's important to think about for impact is that comprehensive counseling and post-secondary planning. It's not enough to just say, hey, you can be a doctor, and it's like, or a nurse, or whatever it may be, whatever career it may be. But it's to think about the active sort of research and engagement around what does it actually take to get there, and laying that out for the students and helping to create the experiences and help them have the space to build the skills to actually get there. And then also engage with advising models that incorporate non-traditional approaches. So making sure that we're thinking about what the environment calls for. You don't want to have students train into, always hear, because I've been around STEM education for a long time, people will say, oh yes, IT is the future, of course. There are a lot of jobs in tech. And then people will develop programs that just say, oh, we're going to teach kids how to code. Okay, that's not enough. It's like, what are they coding? What industry is that being aligned to? And how do you make sure that they understand that coding by itself is not the end goal, right? That is a skill, and you need to, continue your education, because coding and programs change all the time. So how are you engaging in advising models that make sure that you are taking in all of the dynamics around labor demand in the industry to make sure that that student is successful? And then leveraging those school-based resources and supports. Of course, we're an industry, we're an employer partner. We're also an academic medical center, but we work closely with our schools to, find out if they have other career fairs and career days to make sure we engage that way. We also understand different career pathway entry points for connecting students. A lot of school districts or high schools may have early college programs. They may have other CTE or work study programs that allow for students to be able to get experiences. And we want to make sure we're connected and aligned with that as much as we can, do that. And then also just including those traditional and non-traditional modes of career progression. We know that every student doesn't take necessarily a direct path to college and or career, and there just may be different ways to engage folks just to keep them in the game. We've had a number of students who've taken gap years. Pandemic has been incredibly difficult for a lot of folks, and they had to pause, but we kept some students, reaching out, keeping them engaged. Hey, maybe you're not in school full time, but let's take this one class, or, oh, hey, here's this certification program, something you can do to sort of keep them engaged so they're ready to get back, on track and along the path of their career. Next slide. And so actually, yeah, with that, we're at the end. So we want to say thank you and open it up to questions.
Yeah, please feel free to, this is a Zoom meeting, so people can unmic themselves, turn their cameras on, or they can put questions into the chat. So whatever works best for you.
I see Brenda has raised her hand.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I'm very impressed with your program. And one of the questions I've had is this program specifically for Chicago area students?
This one is for Chicago area students. It is. They don't have to be at CPS, but it is for Chicago area students. We are working on, it's not fully in place, but we are working on a couple of things with our Rush Oak Park site. So that's the Oak Park River Forest area. And I hope in a year or so that we will move some things along with our Rush Copy site. They do a program or two, but it's not on this scale at all. But this is targeted towards Chicago.
Okay. The other question I have is, in regards to your career exploration and career assessment, what instruments do you use to help them clarify that they're going in the right direction?
So we don't use a traditional career assessment tool right now. We've toyed with a couple, like on ONET and the Illinois, I'm blanking on the full Illinois Workforce Net name on the interest survey. But we asked them a couple of questions. We've done strength finders, and we asked just a couple of our own questions to them about what they might be interested in. The thing is, most students, when they apply to this program, have some idea, because it is a hospital, right? Like it's not something that people, if they want to do all kinds of things, would think to apply. Our programming at the middle school level and certain things we do in school, we do a little more of a general ask around their interest in careers, because in that case, they're a little more open. But at the high school level, for sure, most students who, they apply, they have some interest in STEM and healthcare already.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Leslie?
Yeah, hi. I was wondering, how do you recruit students for this program, especially the pre-high school age? Do you go directly into schools? Is there an application for those younger students? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have partner schools that we work with for the elementary and middle school programming. So those are West Side schools. We do that on purpose. And we focus and target in. We do have a Saturday program that's a little more open, but it's still West Side students. We end up with students from all over the city in the high school program, partially because you can travel all over. You have students at West Side high schools who live on the far South Side. And so that's more open, but definitely the K-8 program, pre-K-8 programming is all West Side focused.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question in the chat from Natalia Suarez. Thank you for a great presentation. Could you expand on your lessons learned since the pandemic started? How was your experience with students' engagement changed, if at all, due to the pandemic?
I'm going to start, and then I'm going to ask Jaylene to potentially jump in with around engagement. But in terms of our lessons learned, I think there are a couple things that we've seen. There's some programming that can continue to stay virtual. I think there are things that we've learned with a writing class that we do with students, could potentially, stay in a virtual format. We really see for those classes like nursing, boot camp, and ECG tech, though we really need to be in person as much as we can for those types of classes. I don't think anything has changed there. And I think it's also been very important for us to really think about all the ways to still try to engage and connect students with, while being virtual and connecting with them on smaller things, right? And being persistent. I think that's the other thing. I think we know you have to be persistent with students, but definitely in this space, we have to do more, or we have to keep that up and have more sort of near peer mentoring to do kind of follow-ups or connects with students. I think to sort of keep them engaged and keep them connected, if you will, to the programming, and feel like they can speak up and say something if they need something. But Jaylene, if you have any other thoughts around the student experience?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Rukiya when it comes to having those in-person meetings being more effective. The engagement is still there. I want to first start off with the internship itself, as the One College Career Pathways. We are still very involved. I do feel that everything is going very well in the sense that we are able to communicate as good as probably as in person. But when it comes like to the boot camp and any other program, it's that in-person connection that is missing. So we hope with everything post-COVID, we're able to go back in person.
All right. Any other questions? This was in the chat, and I think you talked. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going to pull some of the questions from the actual app that have come through. So how do we expose STEM to students at an early age, possibly beginning in primary school?
Yeah, I would say a little bit more about that. Actually, on our team, we have educators. So we have, you know, I'm saying they're not former teachers, they are teachers. But we have an early childhood one, we have primary grades, we have middle school folks who they will go in and partner with the teacher for like a 10-week, a quarter-long engagement around a unit. They will to provide intensive programming, and we'll work with our school leaders to do like STEM family night, different things like that as a way to start off and keep them engaged. And we work with them just consistently every year to keep that engagement level going. So. Oh, I see. For high school students, do they only choose one program to apply to? And if they don't get accepted to one, could they be in another one? So we only have MedSTEM Explorers is the pre-internship. So that's for like your 9th and 10th grade students. That's the only thing they can apply to with us. And the MedSTEM Pathways is for the older, like that's the junior, senior student. That's the only thing they could apply to. What you can sort of vary in each year is the career pathway focus that you take. So you might apply and say, yes, hey, I want to be a doctor, so I'm going to take the medicine pathway. And then you do your internship or you get a little more involved in that, and then you figure out, no, maybe I want to go to nursing. And so if you come back that next year, you can do the nursing pathway. So it's not that the program per se is different, but the pathway might be different. Natalia, was there another question in the app? I think there was.
Yeah, how are we supporting students without Social Security cards, so undocumented students throughout our programming?
I was gonna say, you want to take that?
Yeah, so we do. We'll still provide the opportunity to students that are undocumented, whether they're coming, whether they're not able to apply for the ASM application, we'll still have them come through our programming. And we do work with those that are undocumented to get them through the program and to get them the ability to be paid as well.
Mm-hmm. Brenda raised her hand again.
Yes, I just had another comment to make regarding, in my experience of students working in STEM programs, one of the barriers is the fear of math and science. They don't want to do the math. It's too hard. They have this perception that they can't do it. So I'm wondering, how do you overcome that myth, or how do you, I'm glad that you're working with students early because that can probably be a part of it, but how do you deal with that when students talk about the fear of math and science?
Yes, that just speaks to me in so many ways. So for us, that starts early. That's where that K-8 programming, that pre-K-8 programming really is incredibly important to start removing those barriers and fears around math and science. And we do that for the students and the teachers, okay? You have teachers that are scared to teach fractions. And so we try to work at that level to begin to address some of the fears there. But very specifically at the high school level, one of the things that we do provide and we do is try to build we have enrichment programming. When these students take our classes, they are taking they have anatomy and physiology. They have, they're doing community, actually Angela teaches our community health class. We actually had them work on a research project, and which is often one of their first times doing a real research project. So giving them this sort of environment and space to learn and try some things out starts to help remove barriers. What we also follow that up with is our Are You Ready sort of prep, and we offer a math enrichment. We offer SAT prep, but we offer math enrichment because we know that it is necessary and fundamental if students are going to succeed later in STEM. And so each year we just sort of get we get their transcripts. We reach out to certain students based on what we see in their transcripts, and some raise their hand and say, yes, I'm going to sign up for that. So we have it for math. We don't really have it for science, but math and for writing are where we have the enrichment supports right now.
Thank you.
Oh, Sam, you got a question.
Yeah, could you expand on the Rush Copy School? Is it going to be statewide? If not, what is the barrier you have to expand to statewide?
So funny you asked that. So one of our goals actually over the next 3 years, we want to be able to replicate, and some of this is not about Rush, but it might be working with another healthcare system to help them also do this. We certainly want our other Rush sites to be able to do it, but it could be that, North Shore may need assistance in even thinking about and conceiving of this. They may not be able to do it on this grand of a scale, if you will, but it's like, what are some of the elements that could potentially be replicated in their surrounding community? We want to be able to share this model with folks. And it's a place-based approach. So again, we're not stuck on it being like, let's stick this Rush Education and Career Hub up, somewhere else. It is, who is the healthcare system? And then how can we work with them to implement something similar in their environment? So that is more to come. Hopefully, maybe 2 years from now, we'll be talking about how we replicated this in another area of Illinois. I'm surprised any district folks have questions about how you're engaging or thinking about this, because that is its own little specialty of engagement.
One of the other questions too that came in, Rukiya, is how did the program establish itself with the schools and the hospital? Concerning the original connection, did it come from the school district itself or the need for the healthcare system to do this?
I mean, it originally started with the healthcare system. So Rush, the Rush Education and Career Hub was started from this legacy of some call a Science and Math Excellence Network. And it was a gentleman named Reginald Hatch Adams, who was over community affairs at the hospital. And he was from the West Side, and, being a community leader and in the schools, he saw, initially the focus was around how do we make sure that our elementary schools have access to like quality math and science programming, because a lot of the surrounding elementary schools did not necessarily have science enrichment or even teach science or offer math or even have science labs. And so it was a push from the hospital end to then work with the school district, to say, hey, let's put a science lab in Heffron Elementary School. And then it's like, okay, now we got to make sure the teachers can, that they're prepared and know what to do in there. So that was sort of the genesis of the work. And then it just sort of grew, of course, as, you see, yep, we need these high school students to get their first work experience and go from there. But it's always, I think in this instance, we take the approach of we work at the district level, but we work very closely with the individual schools as an employer partner. And I was at Chicago Public Schools for about 10 years before coming to Rush. So I know the system and the dynamics and led the STEM office there. I know that you have to do both to sort of make this work. So we work the angle of working with central office, and if there are initiatives that are coming down the pike that we can support or, you know, partner on, then great. But then we also work directly at the school level with the principal, you know, well, I'm saying the principal, with the assistant principal usually, or whomever is leading curriculum or career technical ed to actually do some of the direct programming. We support HOSA, the Health Professionals of America, Future Health Professionals of America club. We work with those clubs at the high schools to also recruit students. You know, you think about your recruitment base, it's like those CTE, you know, allied health or health sciences schools, and where they might have a HOSA program. That's where we go to do recruitment and try to engage on a deeper level. Oh, could we share a list of the certifications that students are able to obtain? Yes, we can. We do have a basic, actually it's in the slide that had reached career pathways. We have the core sort of certifications right now that students are able to obtain. There are a couple that sort of float in and out. One of the certifications, yeah, so that's the industry credentials, this first column. Those are the certifications that they've been able to attain. One of the things that we have done as a healthcare system is we have health IT. So all hospitals, they have some form of electronic health or medical records, and Rush uses Epic, which, you know, quite a few other hospitals use too. And so we have actually done Epic training for students. And that's not one that would generally come up. That's obviously like an industry specific programming that's offered. And we did that. We have students who did that Epic training who earned, you know, $25 a year, an hour, as you know, as high school seniors, you know, and this is pre-pandemic. They're able to get a job. Okay, how much does this program cost? So we just talked about multiple programs, but if you talk about our med STEM, so that's the largest program, the high school program, all together with our instructors and everybody else and what we pay, it's about $400,000. So, but that's just that specific program. All right. Looks like we were pretty thorough for folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And you did good time management too. So we have a few minutes left. If people do have additional questions, again, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, or drop us a question in the chat.
Yes, there we go. 400,000 per year is about what that costs. When you think about the, and that's the size, right? Like you're looking at, this is like this picture on the screen. That's just the high school interns that we have, and we pay all of them. So, and then they're instructors, you know, we have, you know, practicing MDs and nurse practitioners teaching the class. So that's a little pricey. And then we have teacher assistants. So it's like the MD will have 2 assistants and, you know, to support a class of like 30. So we're paying 3, you know, basically 3 people to teach, but that's this model, you know, that's this model. Brenda,
and
your
I
hand
also
is
add
raised
that
again.
includes
Go ahead.
materials and supplies as well
Right.
for the instruction.
That's
so
right.
every child, every
Mhm.
student gets their backpack of materials. The instructors get what they need in order to teach the courses.
Yeah. Brenda?
The other comment I wanted to make was in regards to was students. I work as a scholarship coach. And I always tell students that if you're in STEM, there are so many scholarship opportunities for STEM majors, it's really ridiculous. And so I'm just wondering, do they get that kind of exposure in researching STEM-related scholarships in your program?
So we have this past year, we were able to hire a student success coach who supports students around, financial aid and planning and thinking about scholarships and identifying them. And we partner though with like the ISAC, with Illinois Student Assistance Commission, to also do workshops, one that's financial aid, but we try to have them think about what scholarships they can apply for, of course, including STEM-focused ones. Of course, there's always the thing of students doing the legwork to do the application, but we try to give them a head start, because in the writing component of the program, they work on personal statements. It's like, if you do this, you'll get you go all in with us, you'll get a head start and be able to use what you do during the summer in the application. And that actually leads to a question someone asked about, is it year round? It is primarily this is a summer program, but we will also do for the college students, we will have some of them return and do something in the winter. And for our high school students, we will also have another session that's in the spring, but that's usually for students who may not have gotten the rotation or experience in the department that they wanted to get. For the most part, the pandemic we've had to pause on the spring sessions, but for the most part, we will also do a smaller, it's much more reduced. It's not the same as the summer. The summer is the large one, and then in the winter and spring, we'll probably have like 20 to 25 students at most, if that, in those sessions. And then Gabrielle, you asked about how it's funded. So we're funded through, it's braided funding. So Rush does provide some funding, and primarily Rush funds like our staff and some of the materials, but we're also we get funding from the Gates Foundation. We were a recipient of a grant there, but otherwise we look for other grants. We have one from Motorola, from US Bank, Chicago Bulls. So we are actively always looking for funding. And then After School Matters, which is the Chicago-based city or federal funded program for out of school time work-based learning for teens. So there may be something like that in your city.
Well, that pretty much uses our time today. I want to thank you, all of our speakers. Really great information. Their contact information is in their PowerPoint slide, which will be made available on the conference website, as well as a recording of this. So thank you, all of our speakers. Thanks for all of our attendees. Please enjoy the rest of the sessions today and through tomorrow. And I will give a special shout out to the 215 networking opportunity, where it's kind of like speed dating, but it's in a networking professional fashion. So again, hopefully you can join us for that this afternoon. So with that, I'll thank everybody and have a great rest of your day.